Hey guys, so I apologize for taking so long to finish up this section, part 3 of the tutorial. I ended up having to break it up into 2 different sections as it was getting rather lengthy. But we're going to pick up right where we left off. One thing that I do want to mention is something that I forgot to add in the tools and materials section, and that is some super glue. I like to use Loctite, and I like the gel because it doesn't drip or run or anything. I like to use this when I'm going to attach the different little elements, the separate elements for my trolls, such as the axe that I'm going to create and the drinking horn. I find that a super glue such as Loctite works really well to hold those things in place when attaching them to polymer clay, as opposed to just hot gluing them in or onto the hands that we're also going to make out of polymer clay. It just works a lot better and it will hold a lot stronger. So that's what I recommend. If you don't have any of this, you can use hot glue. But this, I do recommend getting some super glue. All right, let's carry on. Okay, so something that I wanted to show you guys is this is my other troll that I'm working on. This is going to be the gift for my orthodontist. And I skipped ahead without showing you guys this process on this guy, because we're going to go ahead in this section of the tutorial, create the same kind of elements in our what's going to be our Viking troll. But I wanted to show you what this looks like. He's not going to have a helmet like the Viking troll here. So I sculpted in some horns and I attached those. And there's no armature in there. There's no cardboard armature in there. It's just clay. It's just the paper mache clay that I formed and attached to the head. And then I was going to use, originally I'd planned to use these eyeballs, but when I put them in there, I didn't like the way they looked. I thought they were too small in circumference, so I ended up going with the little round glass decorative pieces that we've been talking about. So I used a couple of those instead of those other eyes that I had planned on using. The other thing that I did is that I sculpted in the nose, some eyebrows. I built up some more clay to give it some more definition around the eyes. I gave him some cheeks here, and I sculpted in more of the jaw area. And because he's going to have some teeth and I'm going to fabricate braces on him, I left his jaw a bit more protruding. And I don't really like the profile. The silhouette on his face is good. I like the silhouette. But I'm not real fond of the profile. The nose seems too flat. So eventually I'm going to add some more clay and bulk out his nose. But I do like the way that his jaw is jutted out a bit, because it's going to allow me to put those teeth in there and fabricate the braces on them. So just wanted to give you a quick overview of what I've done here on this troll. And while the clay was wet, if you can see, I took a pen cap and I pressed in some texture. So it looks like he has some different kind of like skin texture around the back of his head here. Not all of his head. I didn't do all of it. I didn't want to overdo it. But I did just this part of the back of his head. And I also did around where the ears are. and up above here. So I pressed that in the top of his head, give it some texture so it'll look nice, it'll look really cool and stand out a little bit more when it's painted. I took the tip of a pen, not a pen cap, but a tip of a pen, and I pressed in some textured areas on his little cheeks here. And then I kind of gave it a little bit more of a definition around the nose as well, but that's not going to matter because, like I said, I'm going to bulk up his nose a little bit. But that's what I've done here, and that's pretty much what we're going to do. We're going to carry on with our Viking troll, put in those same elements, and we're also going to clay over the rest of his body here. And we'll go ahead and we'll strip mache the arms so that they're nice and sturdy when we go ahead and apply clay. And we'll strip mache over the ears as well. And that's probably as far as we're going to get through this section of the tutorial for the continuation of part 3. So it won't be as long as the first part of part 3. And then we'll let that dry. And then in the next section of the tutorial, which will be part 4, that's when we're going to create the helmet and the horns for the helmet, the hands out of polymer clay, and then the axe and the drinking horn. And I haven't really decided yet if I wanted to assemble or fabricate a shield for him yet. We'll see what it looks like, and we'll go from there. But right now, this is where we're at, and we're going to pick up from here. Right. What we're going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and start with building up a nose, and then forming some like eyebrows, and building up around the eyes here to give it some more definition. So I'm just taking some of my clay, and I like to start basically in the center between the eyes. Turn that so you can see it a little better. I start in the center between the eyes, and I just put a ridge of clay in there. And you can make your nose, you know, if you want it to have a big nose, go ahead and make it a big nose. If you want it to be a smaller, thinner nose, go ahead and make it a smaller, thinner nose. If you notice how the clay here has overlapped over the eye a little bit, and that's fine. Don't worry about that. So now I'm just kind of pressing in, and I'm just forming a nose. I'm forming a basic nose. And what I'm going to do for the nostrils is I'm taking 2 amounts of clay and forming them into balls. And I like to do this at the same time so that they're about the same size. So I can already tell that this one over here is a little smaller than this one over here. So I'm just going to take a little bit more clay and add to that one so that I get them to be about the same size. And again, if you want them smaller, like nostrils, you'll make them smaller. I think I want this guy to have kind of a big sort of a bulbous nose. So what I'm going to do is on each side here, I'm going to go ahead and press that in. Sorry, I got to turn this towards me so that I could see it. Sort of something like that. And I'm looking at the silhouette, which is straightforward. I'm forming it a little bit, and then I'm also going to turn it so that I'm looking at the profile. And after I've laid on that clay like that, I'm going to go to my paste. And I'm going to take my brush And I'm going to go ahead and apply some paste over the clay here. And I'm pressing in a little bit, and I'm feathering in like the top here of the nose where it kind of flows into the forehead area. And I'm putting some around the actual eye. And then I'm going to do the same thing around the edge of the nose where like the nostril area would be. I'll do the same thing on this other side. Then I'm going to come in underneath, make sure I have paste under there, and I'm doing the same thing here, kind of feathering that in, blending it in. And that will allow it not only to blend in, but also to stick to this dry clay here. It'll look at it from the side. I kind of like that. I think that's kind of a good Viking nose. I'm gonna go in with my little sculpting, my little sculpting tool that I like to use, and I'm gonna just smooth in those edges a little bit more. Just kind of going in and smoothing it out just a little bit more. And the other thing that I'm doing is where it overlapped a little bit, I'm pressing it out so that we have more of an indentation there of the eye around that area. Going to do that on the sides of the nose here, smooth that out, feather it in a little bit more. Same thing with the other side of the nose and the eye area. Come underneath here, smooth that out a little bit. Something like that. They're trolls. Make them look like trolls. Let me lift him up here so you can see. Now what we need to do is form the actual nostrils there. Alright, forming the nostrils is pretty simple. So what I do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take the end of a pen, any pen, and I'm going to go down underneath here, and I'm going to press one nostril in like that. I'm going to go on the other side, press the other nostril in underneath just like that. Something like that. So it gives it a little bit of a nostril flare. And then with my smaller, or not really a nostril flare, but nostril holes, with my smaller brush with some paste on it, I'm going to go in there and just press in and define it a little bit more. You can make your nostrils as big as you want or as small as you want. So that's basically, that's going to be my nose right there. Now after this dries, I might, and it's because when it dries, paper mache clay will shrink. We've talked about this before. I might go in and determine that the nose is too small, and I might bulk up some more of the nose. But right now I'm going to leave it as is for the purpose of this tutorial. Alright, now what I want to do is I'm going to go in again with a little bit of clay here. And I'm going to go ahead and put in some eyebrows here. And a little bit of clay around here to give the eyes some more definition. So I've taken a little bit of clay. And I'm forming it in kind of like a coil. That's what I kind of like to do. Form it into a coil. And I'm going to go ahead and lay it over the eye, kind of like that. I'm not concerned right now so much about sculpting it. I just want to get it laid on there. And then I'll go in and do some refining if I feel like I need to. So again, just a coil. Kind of like that. Now you can make your eyebrow shape any way that you want. You can make one a little bit higher than the other. You can make one a little bit bigger than the other. Whatever your heart desires. So I think I'm looking at this, and I think I want to make it, I want to add some more clay, make him have some big eyebrows, sort of like that. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. It's just a matter of laying on some more clay. You can curve your eyebrows down, curve them up, leave them straight across, whatever your heart desires. So I've got that on there. I'm going to go in there. I'll use my little brush here and apply some of the paste. And again, when I'm applying the paste, I'm going to feather in the fresh clay that I just put on there for the eyebrow into that dry clay on his head, or what would be his forehead area, and around there as well. Just kind of feathering that in like that. Going to do the same with the other side. Don't worry if you're getting paste on the eyes themselves, that'll wipe off. It's not a big deal. Feather that in a little bit there. And just kind of using the paste to smooth that out a bit. I'm going to go back in again with my little sculpting tool that I like to use and smooth them out a little bit more. Pressing the clay, the wet clay, into that dry clay a little bit more. The main reason that I'm doing that is because I want to ensure that the new clay is going to adhere and stick to that dry clay. So there we go. I'm not really concerned about having this little ridge or definition. In fact, I'm going to press in so it looks a little bit more defined. So it has more of a separation from the nose and the eyebrows. Give it a little bit more texture. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to another small coil. So I'm getting a little piece of clay here. And I'm going to create another small or thinner coil. And build up around that eye area. Just like that. Do the same on the other side. Just like that. And then I'm going to take my, again, I'm going to use my smaller paintbrush with the paste. Come in there and smooth that out. If you wanted to, you can add the coil around, even more around the eye here. I like the way that this looks, so I'm going to leave that. I come in a little bit and with my little sculpting tool, form that a little bit. Do the same on the other side. I think what I want to do is add a little bit more definition in here by just pressing in just sort of a line there. It has a slight line, but if you want it to be more prominent, you'll press in a line into your clay. All right. So that is pretty much a rudimentary way of creating a nose, eyebrows, and giving it some ridge lines or some more definition around the eyes there. And you would do this same technique whether you're using these more rounded humanistic looking eyes, or if you're using these half decorative flat marble, glass marble things. Same thing. Alright, now what I want to do here is I'm going to go in and make his jaw. I'm going to define his jaw, his bottom jaw, out a little bit more because it's too small for my liking. I want him to have a larger, more prominent jaw. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take some clay here. And I'm just going to add some clay, pressing it into the dry clay. I'm just adding more bulk to what we've already established. Just press it in so you get it to stick. I'm going to do the same with the other side. Although that kind of looks cool to me. Like he has one side of his jaw is larger than the other side of his jaw. So if you like that look, you can leave that look. And if not, you just apply some more clay to the other side as well. experiment, play with these things. All right, so I've got that on there. I'm gonna go in with my my little bit of a bigger brush and apply paste onto that wet clay to smooth it out. And it will help it stick better to that dry clay that we put this over, the wet clay that we put it over. It will stick and adhere better, and it also helps to feather in those areas that we've bulked out. So that's what I'm doing around the jaw right there. Don't be overly concerned about that because we're going to go in and put his cheeks in there. But you do want it to make sure that it's going to adhere. So that's what I'm doing here. Getting underneath there. And then in here, I'm going to do the same thing. Using quite a bit of paste over that because I want to make sure that it's going to stick and stay. Just coming in with my fingers, smoothing that out a little bit more, which works perfectly fine if you don't have like those smaller, like one of these things, these smaller sculpting tools. You can use your fingers. They work just as well for this. Alright, that's given him like a pretty decent sized jaw. And again, keep in mind that it will shrink when it dries. What I'm doing now is just I'm coming in and I'm just kind of with my fingers squeezing in a little bit around some of these edges to kind of define it a little bit more. You can kind of take your fingers and shape it. You can shape that jaw. Sort of like that. I'll come in here and just clean it up a little bit. Once you get your jaw into the shape that you want it to be, or the shape that you would like it to be, you can come in with a little bit more paste, smooth it out a little bit more. All right. Yeah, I kind of like that. That's cool. I do want to come in underneath and smooth that out. You get lots of cool texture with paper mache clay. All right, now that I've done that, you can see where I have a nice, more formed jaw where I can put some teeth in there. So that's the idea. You want to have a more formed out jaw with a sort of a cavity in there where you can insert teeth. And we'll do the teeth. We're going to make polymer clay teeth and glue those in. All right, I'm happy with that. That's pretty cool. All right, cheeks. I do the same thing with the cheeks as I do with the nostrils. I take 2 balls of clay at the same time so that I can get them to be somewhat the same size, the same circumference, the same symmetry. This one might be slightly smaller than the other, but that's going to be fine. And I'm looking at him, and this side of his head juts out a little bit more than this side. So I'll use that slightly bigger ball for this side over here. And I'm just placing it where a cheek would be. So where his jawline is, that's where I'm putting it. And I'm just kind of pressing it in without losing so much of the round shape of it. I'm just kind of pressing in the edges here so that it sticks on there. I'll do the same thing with the other side. And kind of into the jaw that we just formed over. It will overlap that a little bit. And then at that point, if you determine like you want bigger cheeks, apply more. I think I want mine a little bit bigger. Another thing that will help you with this method is that you can dip your fingers into your paste, and then you can go in and grab a piece of clay and moisten your clay a little bit more. So that's pretty much all that I'm doing. I'm just applying a little bit more clay over the balls of clay that I just put on there with some paste. Make sure you get the back of the cheeks and underneath there. You don't want to, when you're applying, in this part here, when you're applying the paste, you don't want to press too hard, because then you're just going to end up displacing that wet clay. Really, the areas that you want to press a little bit harder is where you want to feather them in. All right, now you can dip your fingers into the paste, and again, you can use your hands, you can use your fingers to come in and form your cheeks a little bit more. If you don't have one of those smaller plastic sculpting tools that I like to use. is a little harder to get into because of the angle of his arm there, but it's fine. You can get in there and do it. The idea is to make sure that your clay is adhering to the other clay, whether it's wet or dry clay. Take my smaller brush and I'm just going to come in here and clean that up. Make sure that I've got enough of that feathering of the clay so that it will adhere to the dry clay. Go in there and redefine where I may have touched the jaw, redefine that a little bit more. Pen cap for the texture on the cheeks. Just go ahead and poke some holes, basically like you're poking holes. Could be as many or as few as you like. Make sure you do get it in there deep enough so that when we go in and paint, and that's what I'm concentrating on, I'm making sure that these little this texture that I'm putting in here will still stand out after we paint. You want it to stand out and come through the paint. So make sure that you are poking it in there deep enough, because as this dries, it will shrink, those holes will become smaller. Alright, now he has some cheeks. He has some cheeks. He has a nose, he has eyebrows, and he has some more definition around his eyes there. I'm feeling like I want to put some texture into the eyebrows to make them look, I don't know, more like hair or something like that. So I'm just going to take the edge of my, the other end of my sculpting tool. You could use your spoon and, you know, kind of do that. So it gives it more of like a, I don't know, a hair type feel to it. Kind of like that. Gives it more of a bushy eyebrow look to it. Alright, I like that. Alright, so now that we have completed his face, let's go in and we're going to lay some clay on his torso. And that's going to be pretty straightforward. Just like with the head. Just start laying some clay. I'm going to start with the back. If you feel like your clay, if at any time you feel like your clay is not wet enough, take a bit of your paste and pour some into your clay and mix it up. So basically that's all I'm doing. I'm doing the same thing that we did with the head. I'm going to apply this all around his torso. And to hold on to, this is why we've sculpted in different segments instead of sculpting it all out at once, because you're going to need something to hold on to, like I'm doing right here with this guy. Just be mindful, don't press on his face because you'll mess up what you just created there. I'm just holding on to the top of his head where the clay is already dry, and I'm not going to do anything else. Well, I might bulk up the top of the head. We'll see. But right now, I'm not doing anything else with the top of the head. Is we are going to go in and attach his helmet after we create his helmet. I'm going in a little bit lower where the base that we created here is attached to that balloon form for his torso. I'm not going all the way down because, again, eventually I'm going to need something to hold on to without displacing or messing up the clay work that I've already done. So I went ahead and applied a good amount of clay on my torso here to bulk him out. Same thing that I did with the head, only a thicker amount of clay just to give him some more girth. So I did that all the way around the body, and then I took my brush as usual and used my paste over that clay that I applied to smooth it out, paying particular attention to around the neck area where I feathered it in a little bit more so that it blends more. And I did the same thing at the base. We are going to put clay down here and bulk up and create the feet. And then I like to put butt cheeks on my trolls. It's something that I always do. So, you know, I'll go in and I'll do that. But right now we can't really do much else on this guy until this torso here dries completely. The other thing is that you do want to put some clay around where your arms were attached to the torso. Not claying all the way over the arms, but enough so that it gives them a secure area to adhere, so that they're going to adhere and not fall off. And now, as you can see, they look like we have these little tiny arms, kind of like on a T-Rex. T-Rex has this big body and these little tiny front arms. Don't even worry about that because we are going to be attaching hands. Bigger hands, more exaggerated, like larger hands. We're going to bulk up the arms. The hands will have like a wrist area, and that's going to be fine. One thing that I did want to do to finish up part 3 is to strip mache the ears and the arms. And that's pretty easy, but that's pretty much as far as we're going to get. So I just take some newspaper strips here, and I'm going to cut them in half because I don't need these giant long things. Dip them in my paste, and I'm just going to apply them around the arms. You don't need a ton of newspaper strips. 1 or 2 layers will do it. That's just going to give it more added strength. And as you can see, I don't have a whole ton of room around where I built up his cheek. That's fine, not a big deal. I just want to make sure that where we're going to apply some thicker clay, that we have some more strength. And that's where these newspaper strips, just a couple of them, will help with that. Give the structure more strength, and then also you could see by doing that and makes them a little bit more wet, and you can form them or bend them a little bit more so that they'll stay in place and where you want those bends to be. So that's basically what I'm doing. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the ears. I'm just going to go ahead so that they have a little bit more strength when I go and apply the clay to them. This way I can bulk up the clay in certain areas, give the ears more definition. Okay, so I've got some strip mache over my arms and my ears, so that when all of this dries, we can go in and bulk up the ears, give them more definition, bulk up the arms, apply some clay over the arms without the fear of having them collapse. While the torso is wet, if you wanted to go in and add any other details, if you're not planning on putting any type of cloth or clothing on him, and you want to give it some more details, what I like to do is I'll take a pen, again, a pen cap, and I'll put in little indentations of like where he would have nipples, if you will, and his chest area. So that's what I'm doing, and maybe a belly button. So that's basically what I've done there. Just press those in. Again, that's just another fine detail. If you wanted to do that, that'll work. Anyway, that's going to be it. We can't really manipulate this thing any further. We need to let it sit and dry. There's a large amount of clay on this, so it's going to take a couple of days to dry. After it is completely dry, and again, put it in front of fans. It'll dry faster and it'll dry more solid. So you don't have any structural issues. But then we'll get back at it and we will clay over and bulk up the ears, the arms. We'll finish off with the feet. And then while that stuff is drying, we'll create our separate elements, such as the helmet, the horns for the helmet, the drinking glass or drinking horn, and his axe. And then we'll create some butt cheeks on him. If you're into that, we can do that. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up. We've gotten as far as we could possibly get with this section of the tutorial. Thank you for watching. As soon as it's dry, I'll go in and we'll start creating those separate elements. As always, thank you for watching, and catch you in the next one.